Okay, so welcome everyone. This is the third research call with families that we've had. The first two were on specific treatment options that we're exploring through funded research projects at the International FOXP1 Foundation. The first call was with Dr. Genevieve Konopka at UT Southwestern Medical School on an experiment to explore the possibility of gene therapy to treat FOXP1 syndrome. And the second call was with doctors Gudrun Rappold and Henning Froelich from Heidelberg University on the exploration of the possibility of using a particular drug, a small molecule, for the treatment of symptoms of FOXP1 syndrome. So if you haven't seen those videos, they are recorded and they're posted directly on our webpage at foxp1.org. If you go to the events tab, you can see videos of many of our prior events, including those two video calls. So today's call is about clinical trial readiness. So in addition to exploring actual treatment options or actual treatments, we have to lay the groundwork, the groundwork, excuse me, the foundation to get approval for these medicines through FDA regulatory agencies and establish the baseline for companies that we may want to get involved in developing these treatments. And that's kind of the background for today's call. And there's three different items on today's call that will kind of break up half hour by half hour. So the first half hour will be on our relationship, our new partnership with Citizen Health. The second half hour will be with Dr. Paige Seiper from Mount Sinai, and the third will be with Dr. Rajutha Wilson from UCLA. Dr. Seiper and Dr. Wilson are each performing foundation-funded clinical research projects to help us better understand FOXP1 syndrome and to develop some of um, uh, what we will need to develop these drugs with the FDA. So with that, let me begin by passing it over to Dr. Mara Cowan, who is um, our our foundation's liaison with Citizen Health. Dr. Cowan is a postdoctoral fellow in West's lab here at Duke University. So many of you know, I should have introduced myself maybe. So many of you know, I'm a professor at Duke University in the mathematics department. I'm on the board of the International FOXP1 Foundation, and Mara and I met at our research conference on FOXP1 syndrome that we had in July of last year. And we're very excited to have Dr. Cowan volunteering with our organization and being a patient liaison. So Dr. Cowan has a PhD in neuroscience from the University of Pennsylvania, and she is passionate about understanding the cell and molecular mechanisms of neurodevelopmental conditions. Um, Before I pass it on to her, I'll say that in the citizen portion of our call today, we're also joined by Mikkel Bunch. Mikkel is the Patient Support and Operations Manager at Citizen Health. Throughout her career, she's had a focus on rare disease operations, project management, and patient support. And she will be doing a live sign-up demonstration to Citizen Health for us today, just to show you how quick and easy it is. And finally, we have Devin McGraw on the call with us today. Devin has an MPH from Johns Hopkins and a JD from Georgetown Law. Later, she became a partner at the firm Mannett, Phelps and Phillips, and she went on to be one of the co-founders of Citizen Health, and she is now the Chief Regulatory and Privacy Officer. And we're very glad to have her join the call today to answer any questions that you may have about privacy and security. All right, so with that, I'll pass it off to Dr. Cowan, who can explain what Citizen Health is all about and why we've partnered with them.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm just going to share my slides real quick with you guys. Can you guys see that? Does that? Okay, perfect. So hi everyone, and thank you so much again for having me today and for introducing who I am in terms of this foundation. I'm very happy to be fairly newly involved and to be undertaking this new initiative in partnership with Citizen Help. So we're lucky enough today, like was said earlier, that we have some representatives here from Citizen. So I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of what Citizen is and why we've decided to partner with them. Um, did that advance? Okay. And then Citizen really is a secure online platform that allows for the centralization of your loved one's health information in one place, enabling you to take control of your family's care journey and advance research into FOXP1 syndrome. And really, the way this works is that Citizen is able to gather health records for you and then centralize them in an online platform, making it easy for you to share this information with your care team. And then additionally, you have options to, if you decide to consent, then you can share this information with researchers. And so how this works is that your data will be completely de-identified and then shared out with scientists to help advance research and drive treatment options for FOXP1. And so we've decided to partner with Citizen for a number of reasons, but for the many benefits that it's going to provide to you guys as individuals and then to our community as a whole. So in addition to supporting your family's care, research, and helping with community growth, by signing up for Citizen, we'll power a natural history study on FOXP1 syndrome, which will give a longitudinal overview of things like burden of disease, progression of symptoms, prognosis, genotype-phenotype interactions. And this is important for recruiting industry partners and therefore bringing us closer to a clinical trial. And so we've had great participation so far with 36 signups, but we still need more to help us reach our goal of 50 participants in 50 days. And so we encourage you guys to consider joining our community on Citizen by signing up today, either at this website address or using the QR code you guys see here. And of course, please feel free to ask me any questions or reach out to me via email. So thank you so much. And with that, I'll pass it along.
Thanks so much, Mara. And hi, everyone. My name is Kate Haldeman, and I have been working closely with Mara and the team here, along with my colleagues, Mikkel and Devin, on the partnership with the FOXP1 community. And just to echo what Mara said, what we're really hoping to do in support with the community is to unlock the powerful insights that are in the collective medical history for this community to drive research forward. So Mara summed it up really nicely in terms of what our platform does to help you as an individual patient and caregiver get access to your own medical records, and then from there choose to do with that, as you wish, whether that is to securely share them with your care team or consent to put that de-identified medical data to support the natural history study creation. So very excited to chat with you about how that works. And Mikkel will also be doing a live onboarding demonstration so that you can follow along. We did want to start off though by talking to you about the privacy and security of our platform. We know that is a very important topic for the community, and it is our top priority here at Citizen. As a result, we have here our Chief Regulatory Officer, Devin McGraw, joining us to talk about how we approach privacy and security here at the platform. So I'll hand it over to Devin.
Great. Can everybody hear me okay? Am I coming through all right? Okay, good. I see some nods. That's helpful. Thank you all. First, let me tell you a little bit about me. So I came to Citizen initially back in 2017. I had been working at the Department of Health and Human Services Office for Civil Rights, which is the office that creates all the policy and enforces the HIPAA privacy and security rules. And when I was in that job, one of the best things that I was able to do, in addition to doing a lot of HIPAA settlements for enforcement purposes, was to create some comprehensive guidance on the right of patients to get their data. It's been part of the HIPAA rules for more than 20 years, but for a really long time, it was really hard for patients to exercise that right, either on behalf of somebody that they were taking care of, like a child or an elderly parent. And we did some guidance on this and really established in law just how strong this right was. So when we very first created Citizen many years ago, the opportunity to really help patients take advantage of this right, put all of their data, all of it really from every place where you've been seen clinically under your control and within your power to share was incredibly appealing. You know, it's one thing to write the policy, it's another thing to actually make it happen for people. And so that was why I first came to Citizen, and I have been here ever since. The other thing that I think is important for you guys to know about my background is that before I went into government, I was the head of a nonprofit called the Health Privacy Project. And so I saw a lot out there, both in terms of what was happening to medical data, but also what was happening to health data in the consumer space about what not to do. So one of the things that I definitely wanted to make sure that we did when I came to Citizen is to create a product that people would want to use, that people could feel safe using, that wasn't taking advantage of people's needs and really giving them the power to you know, to be able to gather and share their data. So, you know, this is a combination of our privacy and security commitments that we make to you, which can be enforced against us by law, although really the chief enforcer is me, because you know, I wouldn't put my name behind a product or platform that I didn't 100% trust. But, you know, the medical records that we collect are owned by you and are really for your decision in terms of how you share them, how you use them, whether or not you participate in research. And we made the product free for anybody, regardless of whether they share their data or not. So it's really, really your choice about whether to do that. In addition, given that most of the people that come to our platform really do want to participate in research, we made sure that we structured our research program so that it was in compliance with federal US research rules, ethics rules, meaning that there's IRB approvals, there's IRB determinations that the human subjects rules don't apply because the data are sufficiently de-identified. But even in that case, we vet the researchers working with the advocacy community, just to make sure that what's happening is legitimate science, is designed to advance knowledge of the diseases and conditions that affect your community. Title 21 CFR Part 11 is yet another set of regulations that we are in compliance with here on the slide. Those are the regulations that the FDA puts out to make sure that data is of the highest quality and integrity and hasn't been compromised, so that when they use it as a medical products determining agency to decide whether or not to approve a drug or to approve a label expansion, they know that they're relying on data that is good and has not been tampered with. And then in terms of de-identify the data, we use the expert determination route, and we hire the expert that the government relied on to help them write the de-identification regulations in the first place. He's a professor at Vanderbilt. So we go right to the most respected expert in the field, who often happens to be somebody that I've worked with for many years. So I hope that helps you all to feel a bit better about what we're offering you here. I mean, I think there's a lot of features of the product that you can take advantage of, but I think at baseline, you need to know that you can trust it. And I'll stay on through this part of the this webinar in case anybody has any questions. So I'm happy to answer them.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Devin. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Mikkel, and I lead the patient support team here. I'm just going to provide a brief overview of the platform and how it can benefit you, how it can help impact have impact on research. Again, Citizen Health is a platform that enables patients with rare conditions to get access to all of their medical data in one place and support critical research efforts into their conditions. We hope to improve the lives of patients living with rare and complex diseases, and by doing so, unlocking the power of their own health data. There's so much valuable information locked up in a patient's medical history, not only for the individual, but for the entire community. We're providing the easiest way to get access to those insights for patients and researchers to accelerate treatment. So in a couple minutes, I'm going to actually walk through the entire onboarding flow, and I welcome anyone to walk along with me through the process and ask any questions as we go through. There is our website and the QR code, so please feel free to go ahead and get that uploaded, and on the next couple slides, they will still be there, so you'll be able to see it. Some of the benefits here, so it's a way to get access to all of your medical records all in one place. It's the easiest way to power and accelerate research efforts without leaving your home. You're able to share these medical records. So if you were going for second opinions, or if you wanted to share with any loved ones or caregivers, you're actually able to share them electronically right from your profile. You're also able to download any of the medical records that you'd like. This will give you more control and understanding of your loved one's healthcare. And again, you're going to be able to help to build this important natural history research for your condition. I'm going to talk a little bit about international families. I actually saw a question in the chat wondering if this applies to international families. It does. We welcome you to create a Citizen Health account. Unfortunately, we're not able to collect medical records outside of the United States, but if you have your medical records, or if you're able to collect them, you can upload them. Most importantly, your genetic report. The onboarding process is translated into Mandarin Chinese, Spanish, French, German, Portuguese, and Turkish. You will be able to participate in the registry itself, surveys, and patient-reported data features coming later this year for international families. The onboarding at a glance, what we're going to do is create a username and password. We're going to enter basic demographic information. There are two separate consents. One is sharing your contact information and your onboarding status that you've joined with the advocacy group. And the second one is choosing if you would like to include your de-identified medical data with research. We'll enter in the providers where your loved one was seen, and we'll validate your identity. And really, this is a quick process. I'll go through it a little bit slow to answer any questions, but it's pretty quick process here. So let me get over here. You had gone to the website. This is actually what our landing page looks like. We're going to choose to get started. And the first step is creating your account. Just point out a couple things in the top right corner. There is a drop down. You can translate here if you need it in a different language. And on the bottom right is a chat feature. So if you are ever in your profile or when you're creating an account, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us by chat here. We'll be live chatting with you 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Eastern Standard Time. Or if you reach out when we're not here, we'll respond to you the next business day. So the first step is to enter your email address. And create your own password. It has to be at least 8 characters long, 1 uppercase letter, 1 lowercase letter, and 1 number. The next step is entering your name. So if you are creating an account on behalf of your loved one, you're still entering your own name here, and we'll ask your loved one's name later on. So I'll enter my name and choose to continue. And it asks who you are signing up for, either yourself, a loved one, or a loved one who has passed away. If you are creating an account on behalf of a loved one or a child that's under the age of 18, no legal document is needed. If you are creating an account on behalf of a child or a loved one that's over the age of 18, we will need a legal document to collect the medical records and for you to be able to consent on their behalf. This can be guardianship paperwork, conservatorship paperwork, medical medical power of attorney, anything that shows that you have legal rights to collect those medical records. I'm going to choose a loved one. You don't have to have it right now while you're creating the account. If you're able to skip this step and actually upload it later, if you don't have it with you, you're able to continue through the process, and I'll show you that here. So now you're going to enter the patient's name and the patient's date of birth. Continue. And it asks where you live, either the United States or international. If you choose international, the onboarding process is going to look exactly the same, except that we will not ask where your loved one has been seen. You won't be entering the providers, and I'll show you at the end of the process how you can upload medical records. I'll choose the United States. It asks what your loved one's diagnosis is. I automatically put in the FOXP1 syndrome because that's the landing page that I started at, but you can change that if you needed to. And then the year that your loved one was diagnosed. The next consent, this is the first consent. It's asking if you want to share your contact details and your onboarding status, or that you've joined the natural history study with the FOXP1 Foundation. You can click learn more to actually read through the consents, and you can choose to share your information or decline. At the end, when your account is complete, you can always change consents. If you ever decided you wanted to change the consent back a different way, you're able to do that. The next step is asking, we're adding providers here. So it's important to collect records from all of the providers to get a really comprehensive look at your loved one's care journey. So really going all the way back to the birth hospital, neurologists, any specialist that your child sees in conjunction with the diagnosis, pediatric specialists, primary pediatrics, genetic labs. So if you know the lab that performed the genetic testing, you can add the lab. If you don't recall the lab, you can add the provider that ordered the genetic testing. They'll actually include that genetic testing in their records. Any hospitals where one has been admitted, where any diagnostic imaging was performed, such as EEGs or MRIs. If your loved one has seen many providers within a large group, you don't have to list them all individually. So many of these large facilities have a centralized medical record department. So if my daughter were to see many providers at Mayo Clinic, I can actually just choose the Mayo Clinic, and they'll send all of the records for any provider that they've seen there. We actually use the Google database as our search engine. So it's much like Google, where you can narrow down the search if you're looking at Kaiser and you're finding lots of Kaisers and you want to find a specific, I want to see Kaiser in Fresno. I can go ahead and start typing that in, and you can add the address. You are able to list doctors by name. So if you are looking for a Dr. Smith in Minnesota, you can actually list each provider by name if you don't remember the larger location where they were seen. Again, you can add the genetic lab. So for example, GeneDx or Ambry, you can actually add the specific lab. Again, you're able to add additional providers once the account's complete. So have the entire list of your loved one's providers in front of you. You're able to just continue by adding one provider and come back later and add more providers. And again, if your loved one goes back to new facilities, you'll be able to log in at any time to add those facilities. And this is the research consent. So if you would like to include your loved one's de-identified medical data for research, you'll be able to participate or decline. And again, you can choose learn more and read through it. And again, you can always change this once the account is complete as well. I'll choose to participate. Now it asks for your daughter's or your child's sex assigned at birth, your zip code, and your phone number. I entered that my child was, or my loved one was over the age of 18, so it's asking me to upload the legal document. I'm able to upload it now if I have it. If I don't have it, I can choose to remind me later. You'll receive an email asking or showing you how to upload the legal documents. Once you have it with you, again, we're not able to collect any medical records without this legal document. So it's important that you follow up and upload it. But again, we understand you don't always have that right in front of you, so you can choose to remind me. The last step is obtaining your electronic signature. I know it's hard to get a good electronic signature, but we do ask that you make it as close as possible to your normal signature. Facilities do look at this signature to confirm that it is you actually signing and asking for the records. So you're able to clear the signature and start over until you kind of get it as close as possible to your normal signature. And I'll choose to finish the registration. So this is what the profile looks like once it's complete. The providers have 30 days by law to send the medical records. They can ask for a 60-day extension, but many providers will start to send in the records pretty quickly. You might just see some of them within a few weeks. Once they're there, you'll be able to click medical records. You'll see little thumbnails of the records, and there'll be many pages in each thumbnail. So each thumbnail represents a different facility's records that they have sent to us. You're able, again, to share the health records. So you would just click share your health records and enter the email of the person you'd like to share the records with, and they'll receive a link to be able to view the records. This is where you're able to add additional providers. And here you are able to upload your own records. So for international families, this is where you can upload those records, and really anyone can upload records. Again, the chat feature is always here on your profile, so we welcome you to reach out anytime to ask any questions. Down in the bottom left will be your loved one's name. You'll be able to click my profile to edit any information if you entered anything incorrectly. This is where you're able to upload the legal document if needed. And then down here are the privacy consents. So you're able to update any of those consents there. I am going to flip back to my slides here. So again, the providers take up to 60 days to send the records, but you'll start to see the records more quickly than that. Providers may reach out to you to confirm that you sent the record request. So they do have the legal right to reach out to confirm the record request, and some may. Most don't, but some may reach out to you. Our team may reach out to you as well. So we have a triage team that goes through the records, and we just make sure that we've collected anything. So if we see a big gap in care and we don't know, like, who did your loved one see at that time, we may reach out to you from support at citizenhealth.com with any questions. And again, we might reach out if we have any general questions about a record request that you enter. Again, you can always log back in to add new providers that you have. We don't automatically update the medical records. So let me just, I'm going to show you quickly. These are how to contact us. Email support@citizenhealth.com, our phone number. And again, the live chat is always there in the profile. I'm just going to flip back. Oops. So again, we do not keep the medical records up to date. We send out this first record request. So if you go back to a new provider and you want those records collected, or if you want to log in like every few months to update the records, there'll be a new button next to each of these requests once they're fulfilled that says get new records, and you'll be able to click on each button and it'll just send out the record requests quickly, and it'll just update your records just to get the most up-to-date records. All right, with that, I am going to stop sharing and we will answer any questions that you may have.
So there are a couple questions in the chat from Lara, if you want to address those.
Sure. Lara is asking, when we reach out to the providers to request the information, are we informing them that the request is related to FOXP1? We are not. We send a HIPAA compliant record request to the providers asking for the complete record set. So we're not asking for just specific records for the FOXP1. It's a general record request that's compliant, HIPAA compliant, and we request all of the medical records. And again, Lara's asking if they're able to choose specific pages from the records that you want to share, or does it share all the records from the provider? Lara, I think you're asking when you share your records from the Citizen Health profile with another specialist or someone, it will share the entire profile with whoever you're sharing it with at this time. We are able to collect imaging for you. So if there are specific images that you wanted to share, you could choose a specific image or a specific record set. But if you're not able to choose specific pages, you are able to download those pages. So you could log into your profile, download the record, and only share the specific pages that you want to share without sharing the entire record set. I see Anna is asking if this just works with US providers. That's correct. We're not able to collect any medical records outside of the United States. So you would have to collect your own medical records and upload them directly. Thank you for the questions.
Yeah, so international participants can still sign up, but you just don't have the legal mechanism to obtain the records yourselves, right? It's so patients, though, internationally can obtain their own records and then upload them. So that's the difference. It's
Yep.
just
And most importantly, genetic testing. It would be great if you can upload your genetic testing.
Right. So there's a lot of value if you can just, sign in internationally, create an account, and upload your genetic test. That already is very helpful.
Any other questions we can answer?
Hi, so can I ask from here?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so just as an international, would that mean that any record we want to upload, we'd have to have translated to English? Because like that would mean, so like we had the genetic testing translate, but it costs a significant amount of money, and some of the other people from our country maybe wouldn't want to invest that money. So I'm thinking of like other records that we would have to find in the future. How would it work?
Right. The genetic testing will not need to be translated. You can upload that in any language and we'll actually be able to translate that. Kate, I think that any other records may need to be translated, but I'll let you correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's a great question, Dan. So right now, the reason we're encouraging the international participants to upload the genetic report is because Mikkel said we're able to extract that data for the use in future data sets if you choose. Any other records that you upload at this time are really for your own personal use right now. So I would not invest in translating those right now because it's really just for you to centralize your records, but the genetic report can contribute to the community insights. We do have on our roadmap to explore how we can support international families with putting their other records towards the research and potentially other translation options. But for right now, focus on, if you can upload your genetic report, and if you want to use the platform as a means to centralize your other records, that's fine as well.
Okay, I think I'm going to let you take this one as well. Lara says, when you select if you want to share your records with researchers, can you select which providers' records you are willing to share, or does it share all of your records from all providers?
It's a great question, Laura. So right now it would, it actually we don't share the underlying medical records with the approved researchers doing natural history research on the data set. What we actually do is we take the records, we de-identify the information, and then we actually extract key elements from your data into a standardized data set. So we're not ever sharing the underlying medical records. It's more key extracted information across the community in a standardized way that helps the researchers understand the progression of the disease, the disease journey of individual participants over time. So, so to answer your question, The underlying records are not shared with the researchers from that, are using it for the natural history research, but the data does come from your full comprehensive medical history to ensure there's a rich data set as part of that user journey that's reflected.
I
Hey,
think
on that same line, do you want to just tell them what de-identified means, just in case that's
Yeah, so it's a great question. So we follow that expert determination that Devin was referencing to ensure essentially the data cannot be traced back to you, right? There's no name, there's no personal identifying information. It is almost looks like an anonymous individual's patient journey. So we don't use exact zip codes, names, birth dates, and nothing that could, trace it back to the individual.
Yeah, there's, just to jump in here, there are federal standards, that's the HIPAA expert determination, that set when data is sufficiently been either stripped of identifiers, or some people perturb the dates. They set the date, the dates 1 week later. It's called date shifting, in order to significantly reduce the risk that it can be traced back to you as an individual, but it still has enough richness in the data in terms of the different variables that that it actually can be useful for research purposes.
Great. Are there any more questions before we move on to our second topic?
I do see the psychological records. Clara,
Oh,
I think that those will be needed for research. Kate, correct me if I'm wrong. You can certainly request them and we'll collect them if you'd like them for your own use, but I don't think that they'll be needed for any research purposes.
Great, and I'll just put my email in the chat. So I'm happy to coordinate between, and facilitate between the FOXP1 community and Citizen Health. And I know that our excellent and kind people who've joined us from Citizen are happy to take questions too via email. So however you guys want to reach out, just please feel free to do so.
wonderful. Well, thank you all so much.
I actually do see a question in the chat that I don't know if folks answered, that about only choosing specific pages from the records, or if it's all the records.
That was addressed. Mikhail addressed that.
Okay. All right. Apologies. Just want to
No
make sure.
worries.
Thank
No
you.
worries. Okay, so then let's move on. Thank you very much to the Citizen team for that presentation and that explanation of why this collaboration with Citizen Health is so important for our community as we try to develop treatments for FOXP1 syndrome. And Kate, I did not realize you were going to be joining this call. Otherwise, I would have given you a nice introduction as well. Sorry
Oh,
about
it's no problem. Happy to be here.
All right, thank you. All right, so next we're going to move on.
My elbow starts there. Oh, shoot. That's okay.
Okay. So we're gonna sorry, we're gonna move on here, and I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Paige Seiper. Dr. Paige Seiper obtained a PhD in clinical psychology from Yeshiva University. She is currently the chief psychologist at Seaver Autism Center for Research and Treatment and associate professor of psychiatry at Mount Sinai. She specializes in the diagnosis, neuropsychological assessment, and treatment of neurodevelopmental disorders, including FOXP1 syndrome, with research focused on sensory processing and biomarker discovery through electrophysiological and behavioral methods. As co-developer of the Sensory Assessment for Neurodevelopment Disorders, she leads psychological assessments across a broad portfolio, from natural history studies to clinical trials. Dr. Seiper is world-renowned and has presented her work internationally in addition to media appearances with CNN, CBS, NBC, Lifetime, and the New York Times. Dr. Seiper is one of the leading clinical experts in the world on FOXP1 syndrome, and the International FOXP1 Foundation is proud to be supporting her project, FOXP1 Qualitative Assessment and Clinical Global Impression Scale Development. With that, I'll pass it on to Dr. Seiper.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I can't see you all now that I'm sharing my slides. Can you see my slides okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you to the foundation for having me, for funding this work. Feel free to jump in anytime with questions, and we'll have time for questions at the end. So to start, I'm going to talk about the project that we're carrying out at the Seaver Autism Center, developing a clinical global impression scale and doing a qualitative assessment to get to that point. So just some background on research at the Seaver Autism Center in FOXP1 syndrome, we saw our first patient in towards the beginning of 2016. So we're going on 9 years of seeing individuals of all ages with the syndrome, starting out with just an initial prospective phenotyping study, and then a subsequent study that came out in 2021 that in a larger sample and in a sort of more concise way summarize some of the neurobehavioral presentations that we see. We have a practice parameters paper, a gene reviews paper, and then just a couple months ago published our study looking at adolescents and adults with FOXP1 syndrome. If anyone wants access to any of these papers, feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to share them. So this sort of leads us to, sort of what next, right? Thinking about that long-term overarching goal that the foundation has, and that certainly us as clinical researchers in the field have, to get to the place of clinical trials. And what do we need to do to set ourselves up to be successful in FOXP1 clinical trials? And so thinking about the foundation's goal to establish clinically validated endpoints for use in future trials, one of the tools that's used broadly, even outside of the neurodevelopmental domain, is something called the clinical global impression scale. And so following with several other genetic syndromes associated with neurodevelopmental disorders, we are working towards the development of a FOXP1 specific CGI. And so the study that we're carrying out has two aims. So the first is qualitative assessment to quantify key concerns across different age groups, and then to develop a FOXP1 specific CGI scale. And I just want to sort of take a step back for a moment to define some key terms here. So when we run a clinical trial, we look at clinical outcomes, and we have to actually choose a clinical outcome assessment or certain clinical outcome assessments as the trial endpoint. So a clinical outcome assessment is really just a clinical outcome that we're using to measure or describe how a patient feels, functions, survives. And this is sort of the FDA definition here. And then an endpoint is a predetermined variable, oftentimes a COA, where you're statistically analyzing the response to treatment, for example, from baseline to, for example, week 12 or whatever the treatment period is. And the reason that clinical trials are so complex is that we have to predetermine the endpoint. And in order to select the endpoint, we need to understand what clinical outcome assessments are appropriate for use in this population, are likely to be sensitive to change with treatment, are appropriate for all, and if not all, we need to know what subset of individuals they're appropriate for. And then we need to take all this information and determine, okay, what is the endpoint? What is the treatment trying to target? And which endpoint do we think will most closely reflect what that target is? And so this is a really complicated process when we think about designing trials. And in order to set this community up with sort of the best possible outcome is to make sure that we're clinical trial ready, that we are looking at the COAs that are appropriate, but also that we're developing endpoints that are that we think will be reliable and sensitive in this population. And there's 4 different types of COAs. So there's patient-reported COAs, where you're directly asking the patient about their health status. As we know in FOXP1 syndrome and many other similar syndromes, this is really not feasible for many individuals, and certainly not for the majority or most. So what we're often looking at are the 3 other types of COAs. We're looking for clinician-reported outcomes, and the CGI is one of those, so that's where that fits. So it's based on information based on a clinician or a trained mental health professional's observation of the patient's health condition, as well as information gathered from the family or caregivers. There's also observer-reported outcomes. So for many of you who have participated in studies or even just gone through evaluations with your children, all of those. Sorry, it sounds like someone needs to mute.
We're gonna be Daniel and Katie to go to Target.
Okay, got quiet. So the observer reported outcomes, when we think about the parent interviews or the standardized parent questionnaires that you've completed, those are all observer reported outcomes. And then there's performance outcomes. So this is gathered from, for example, cognitive assessments, language assessments, things that come directly from the patient or the participant. So what is a clinical global impression scale? So the reason that CGIs are so relevant to clinical trials and are used so broadly is because it's a measure that looks at the overall impact of a treatment. It's a global impression. And so it's not about having to select an endpoint that's just looking at language or just looking at adaptive behavior, for example. This is really taking a much broader view of the overall impression of the treatment on a given patient. And so there's two things that are rated. There's the CGI severity, referred to as the CGI-S, which is where the clinician's rating how severe are the patient's symptoms on a 7-point Likert scale, which I'll show you. And then the clinical global impression improvement scale. So this is the change rating. How much has the participant improved since baseline? Again, a 7-point Likert scale. And so even in the context of a clinical trial, a patient's severity rating may remain the same, but they can have shown improvement, which can be captured on that CGI-I. So this is just an example of a standard CGI where a clinician or physician is just basically filling in a score overall, their total clinical experience with these patients. How does this patient compare? And then how much have they improved? So there's minimally improved, much improved, very much improved, no change, or then minimally worse, much worse, or very much worse. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of sort of subjectivity that you can consider, especially in complex presentations where we have patients who present with different levels of symptoms in different domains. And so, as I mentioned, several other groups have developed syndrome-specific CGIs. In Phelan-McDermid syndrome and Angelman syndrome, both have already gotten to the point of being used in clinical trials. In Angelman syndrome, in fact, in one of their phase 2 and phase 3 studies, they found that the adapted CGI actually detected significant clinical benefit of drug over placebo, in contrast to the non-syndrome specific assessments. And then in ADMP syndrome, they're sort of just starting this process. So they have completed the qualitative assessment process and are moving towards the CGI development. And just to sort of walk you through the general model, the very first step, which is that first aim for us, is determining the most clinically meaningful symptom domains. And so in the case of Phelan-McDermid syndrome, there was a lot of natural history data that could be used in addition to a large survey from their foundation and discussions with patient advocacy groups. In the case of Angelman syndrome, it was based on these detailed caregiver interviews. In our case, we kind of had the benefit of both. We're going to do these very important caregiver interviews, and we're also able to collect additional data, which I'll talk about what that looks like, and use existing data so that we can really pull all this together to determine the most clinically meaningful symptom domains. The second step is then to create specific anchors. So we identify the domains, and then we have to define exactly what those domains mean. So thinking about sort of that severity measure. So for example, there could be, from that 1 to 7 scale, sort of what does it look like based on breaking it down a child's language, for example, from a child who maybe uses no words to single words all the way up to sort of fluent speech. And then we have to define and quantify clinically meaningful change. So what does that look like very specifically within these domains that we now have anchors for? And so that's what we'll be doing here. So just so you have a sense of sort of what some of the outcomes have looked like in these other syndromes. So in Phelan-McDermid syndrome, for example, they were able to identify certain symptom domains that all individuals with Phelan-McDermid syndrome had to some degree. And then another set of symptoms that were highly impactful, but they weren't relevant to everyone. So things like seizures, sleep problems, GI problems. And so this is a really nice model when we do see broad phenotypes. And then this is using the Angelman syndrome example here, just so you have a sense. On the left, you have sort of these anchors. What exactly does this look like? And then you can see on the right, for each of the domains they identified, so behavior, fine motor skills separated from gross motor skills, expressive language separated from receptive language. So that would be how much language is a child or individual using versus how much do they understand, and sleep. And for each of these, the anchors are so specific. So for sleep, for example, it's even giving windows of time that it could take an individual to fall asleep, how consistently they sleep for a certain number of hours a night. So really taking all of this information to make things so clear, to make it as objective as possible for raters across sites to be able to rate consistently. And the reason this is important is because as we get into clinical trials, the goal will be to get into clinical trials across multiple sites. And the more standardized these assessments are, the more consistent it will be across raters. So in the FOXP1 study, a couple different goals that we talked about, and I'll talk about how we'll accomplish those. So starting with determining the most clinically meaningful symptom domains, we'll be collecting a series of questionnaires and interviews with caregivers so that we can take all the information together to determine what these symptom domains are. And then we'll be defining specific anchors within each of those domains. How can we differentiate between these various severity ratings? So we're going to systematically characterize those symptoms into the distinct domains, define the anchors and corresponding scores within each of those. And then we'll define what clinically meaningful change looks like. So we have to be very specific about what symptom changes would qualify as meaningful from a clinical perspective. And that clinical perspective is coming based on caregiver interviews. What do parents feel would be a clinically meaningful change, starting with the most minimal clinically meaningful change and working our way up for those ratings, along with clinical expertise and understanding development and sort of appropriate milestones within each of the domains looked at. So in terms of eligibility, those who are eligible at this point have a confirmed diagnosis of FOXP1 syndrome. So anyone who reaches out will collect a genetic report to confirm that and is under 18 years of age. We just completed that adolescent adult study on 20 individuals, so we're able to pool that data already. We will be doing remote interviews with a sample size of 12. So the papers that have come out have been anywhere between 10 and 12 in-depth interviews. And those individuals will also complete a visual analog scale, and I'll show you some results of what that looks like, and additional caregiver questionnaires. Anyone who wants to participate in those caregiver questionnaires and the visual analog scales, we would welcome you to reach out to us and enroll for that part of it. We'll be able to do a consent and send you a link to these questionnaires. And then anyone who's also interested in those remote interviews, what we'll be doing is reach out to us. Our coordinators will do a phone screen. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our interviews capture a range of ages and ability levels, because we really want to make sure that when we think about this, we're thinking about sort of the full spectrum of FOXP1 syndrome, so that we can understand what applies to all, what applies to most, and what's important to family members who have children of different ages and levels of ability in the context of clinical trials. And then just to sort of give you a brief glimpse of this, is from the adult FOXP1 paper. So a visual analog scale asks, what are your top concerns? So for this paper, we asked, what were your top concerns for your child in during childhood, and what are your top concerns currently? So we could see sort of the difference about how concerns change between childhood and adolescence or adulthood. And so for the purpose of the CGI, this will be broken down even more, right? So here we took responses and collapsed things into speech and communication, for example, independence, general development, cognition. And so for the purpose of the CGI, we're going to be able to do a deeper dive into this existing data and then collect a lot more of it from individuals of or caregivers of individuals of varying ages to really be able to optimally determine what are the domains that are most important to families and what does change look like there. So thank you. I'm going to stop sharing in a moment so I can take any questions. If you are interested in participating or you have questions or you might be interested, please reach out to our FOXP1 study coordinator, Serena Kai. Her email's there. Feel free, you can reach out to me as well. And she will take you through the next steps of the process.
Thank you very much, Dr. Seiper. I just actually have a quick question that other parents might have. If they do volunteer for this study, since you're one of the world's leading experts on seeing, that has seen many FOXP1 patients, most of us, our doctors have never seen another person with FOXP1 before. You'd be a great resource for us parents. And I bet a bunch of parents wondering if they sign up for the study, will they get to ask you questions or kind of, lean on your advice and pick your brain about things they may be interested in asking you?
So I guess two thoughts. My most immediate one that I think will be relevant to everyone, because I know there's certain age ranges and the interviews are limited. So I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, they get this access and I don't, because I didn't, get selected for an interview. That practice parameters paper is hopefully helpful to many caregivers. And if anyone doesn't have access to it, I'm also happy for you. I'll just post it on your website if it's not there already, but I think that's a really helpful resource to bring to physicians and clinicians who don't have experience in this area. I think our goal for the study and sort of what we're funded to do is to gather information from the families about what is challenging, what would be a meaningful change, what are the sort of impactful areas, right? And so from I'm obviously no one's clinician, right? And so I think from a research perspective, I want to, there's not like a report involved because it's really much more of us gathering information from families.
Right. Are there any questions? Can we put that slide back up about who to contact
sure.
signing up? Because that's, we'd love to have as many people that are on this call, with children that are under 18 to sign up. And
I did see a question about what about children over 18? We would encourage anyone who wants to sort of be within our network, reach out to us. We'll collect your genetic report. We'll get us on your email list. So as opportunities come up, we certainly can let you know. We do feel like at this time, given that we've done, comprehensive psych evals on 20 families, and many of them fitting into that older age range, that this is information we don't yet have from the pediatric population. So we are, for the purpose of the CGI development, going to stick to under 18, but we'd love to have everyone in our network. And we'll certainly be in touch if there's opportunity for others to get involved that don't fit the specific criteria.
Any other questions for Dr. Seiper? All right. Well, is Dr. Wilson on the call actually? Because that's that's supposed to be the final part of the call, but I don't see her on the call yet. Maybe we'll wait a few minutes here in case she joins. But in the meantime, I can just say that all of this research that has been, that's going to be done by Dr. Seiper, by Dr. Wilson, this is all made possible by donations to the International FOXP1 Foundation, particular our research fund. That's, donations by all of you. And And so if we want to continue developing these projects whose goal is to develop treatments for our children, then we need to have continued support of our foundation. So I really want to invite everyone to reach out and hold a fundraiser, donate some funds yourself, reach out to your family and friends so that we continue this important research that is going on to try to develop treatments. All right, there's another question in the chat for you, Dr. Seiper.
So I'm going to say, everyone reach out to us if you're interested. Let us know if you saw us. We'll probably know that we already saw you. But yes, we will definitely, some of the information we're collecting here, we did not previously capture because it's more specific to sort of the CGI development, the visual analog scales, for example. So we will sort of on a individual basis, if you did participate, figure out what would be helpful to gather that we don't yet have from you. And would love, anyone to participate that's interested.
There's another question in the chat about placebo control.
Yeah. So, we're not yet at the stage of clinical trials. When design, this is sort of the idea of developing an endpoint that could then be applied to any future clinical trial within FOXP1 syndrome. And when those get designed, I'm sure you all will get all of the information. But I think too early to know what those initial studies will look like. But you all would know better than me, Samit and Carl.
Yeah. Yes, once we have a treatment that we're trying to test, we'll cross those bridge about whether we need placebos or avoid them or. But right now,
I mean, the CGI is included in all studies, and so to be able to have one that is already syndrome specific when you get to that point will be very helpful.
Right. So I think this came up earlier. So international participants can enroll in your study, right? There's nothing that restricts to US participants or.
So there are certain restrictions through our IRB around UK participants. But again, everyone reach out to us. And if there's anything specific with a certain country, we can let you know. The interviews will be with US families just based on our IRB approvals for those interviews.
Any other questions? Okay, so if Dr. Wilson is still not on the call, I don't see her there.
I wonder if she had the time.
Yeah, there's a time issue because she's in California, so she may be planning to hop on at 2 p.m. California time. But sorry for that miscommunication, but we will have a future call with Dr. Wilson once we're ready to enroll in her study. But for now, if you're interested in enrolling in Dr. Seiper's study, this is really important. Please do reach out. And can we maybe put that email address from your slide in?
Yeah, I'm going to put it in. I'll put it in.
Type in the email address in the chat and that way everyone will be able to reach out to you if you're interested in enrolling for this study. Did it come up? I don't see it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I must have. It looks like I direct messaged the AI thing. Group meeting.
All right, yeah, so there's the email address that you can email if you're interested in signing up for Dr. Seiper's study, which we really hope to encourage people to do. And also, we encourage people to sign up for Citizen. We're only 14 away from our goal of 50 patients sign up for Citizen. So, Dr. Seiper is an example of a researcher that might benefit from getting the de-identified data of our, children, getting a cohort of FOXP1 patients. And, she's the type of researcher we'd want to be able to supply that information.
I will add, I was listening to the end of that call, and I know there was a question about psychoeducational reports. Those would be extremely valuable to us. I think the answer was to the opposite of that. So I just wanted to mention it from thinking about endpoints, all of that sort of cognitive data and language assessments and all of that standardized testing done through a psychoed or a neuropsych would be very valuable for the clinical research community.
Great. That's good information to have. All right, well, thank you all. I want to thank also all our parents. I know you have busy schedules, and thank you for taking an hour out to be involved in this call. We're going to post the recording and share with our entire community. Thank you, Dr. Seiper, for joining
Thank you
us.
for having me. Bye.